Hey, what is going on everybody, and welcome to Fantasia. For today, we're going to be jumping into another session of Epic 7. Now today, we have another account overview for you guys, and this one's going to be for the month of February 2021. Now, if you guys don't like waiting an entire month or so for these account overviews, then feel free to join our Discord community. Link to it will be in the description down below. That way, if you have any questions about the game, if you're curious about my most up-to-date unit builds, you can always ask me in the Epic 7 channel. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into this, shall we? So starting off here, we're going to go with Holiday Yufine. We're just going to go down in order, sorted by grade. So my Holiday Yufine here changed her build up a little bit. I believe she got a little bit tankier. Her speed dropped by a few points, but that's not a huge concern because she's going to be going before most of my DPS anyway. I've lowered her effectiveness and gave her a little bit more crit chance. She's really just a support unit here to counter Basars, and she actually does, if you're having trouble with her, counter Celine's and potentially F10As and stuff as well, right? But you're going to be banking on the evasion, so I don't know, it's a little bit of a gamble. However, if you do have a unit that has Bastion of Perlucia and you have your Holiday Yufine on immunity, she could potentially stand up to F10As. But again, it's going to be a little bit of a gamble, but it does work. Alright, so that's my Holiday Yufine right here. She's on Champion's Trophy, allows her to be a pseudo dizzy, increases her effectiveness by a bit, allows her to stun, all that good stuff. You're not really going to be going for stuns on things like healers and stuff, so there's no reason to increase her effectiveness by much. Alright, so let's go on to the next unit, which is Ken. Now, unfortunately, I've ungeared my Ken. His is really scuffed stats. If you want to see my actual Ken that I used to use, you can go ahead and check that out in the previous account overview for January. But yeah, this is his gear right now. I'll use him in things like mock battles or maybe things like PvE in Hell Raid, but that's about it. I don't really use him much. This is just a very scuffed build. You'll see where all of his good gear went once we get down to some of the Earth units. Alright, next up we have Lilias, who has been changed up quite a bit. Now, this is an effect res Lilias, and she is on immunity. Now, her resistance is really, really low, only 150%. She's not going to be resisting Cerises or F10As or things like that, but she does screw over low effectiveness Falconer Kluris in RTA, and that's what I've been kind of using her for the most part recently. I've tried using her against Cerises and F10As, and this effect res is too low. You need 250% or higher to resist things that have 150% effectiveness. However, I do sometimes pair her with Angelic Montmorancy, who does have a ton of effect res now, and yeah, she does work quite well as like a full team cleanser, right? She's on Steadfast Gatekeeper because usually you're going to be bringing her into debuffers who like to AoE debuff your team or strip your team. This allows her to cut through with combat readiness and potentially cut the opponent, push them back, and just cleanse your team from things like stuns and stuff. So it's really useful. It's not a bad artifact at all. Alright, so moving on here, we have good old Kayron. Nothing's really changed from him in previous account overviews, but, you know, if this is your first time watching one of these videos, here are his stats. Rocking, 4,100 plus attack, really, really good. You need the 100% crit chance on him, and you need pretty high crit damage. Now, personally, I don't really like to go for too much speed. I feel like this is good enough, right? He tends to go after some of my other damage dealers, which is why he's on Aaliyah's knife. He's my tank buster. I use him to destroy things like ML Kraus, potentially cut through Ruels and stuff as well. Aaliyah's knife is a fantastic artifact for him, and immunity is a must, right? You don't want him to get stunned or silenced or anything like that before he gets his turn. Alright, so moving on here, we have Faithless Lidica, who I do enjoy using from time to time, never really in actual RTA fights up where I am climbing towards champion right now. Yeah, so she's just here for fun. She's got kind of damage stats here, and her effectiveness is quite low. However, I don't really use her to control things like Ruels and stuff. This is really just to go ahead and control like a DPS. I tend to bring her against things like Charles in Guild Wars. She is actually really good at controlling him, pushing him all the way to the back, making sure he's slow debuff. Putting defense breaks on with Miss Comfeel here is really strong, especially in a crowd control team. It really gives your team a bit of burst potential, and it's not too bad. Her exclusive equipment here is the Dispel an additional buff when using S2. It's actually quite nice, again, for teams that have defense buffs, you know, Alencias, Charles, those Earth units that are pretty prominent in today's meta, or at least on Guild War defenses, that meta. Lidica is pretty good in that regard. Alright, so moving on here, we have my Melissa, and she is on a Destruction build. Now, the reason why she's on Destruction set here is because her attack is actually incredibly high. She has a really high natural attack, as you can see, even with like barely any attack subs anywhere, especially like this thing here, right, 7% attack sub. She's still rocking a very solid attack, and especially for her crit damage, around 295, and she's rocking the 100% crit rate as well. She's on speed boots here, and again, you see there's no attack subs anywhere in the speed boots, so she could potentially be doing much more damage than this, but you know, I just don't have the gear for it. But the thing is, she works. She's on Oath Key here because her goal is to go ahead and destroy Revenant Violets on defense teams, right? So on Arena, on Guild Wars, she's going to go ahead, strip Violet's evasion, go ahead and land Curse on him potentially, and then she can even, you know, two-shot something like Arbiter Vildred or another squishy unit as well if she lands the Curse on Violet. So she's a very, very strong unit. Now, her speed here is relatively low, but I do combo her with Ice Rose. She and Lilibet are comboed with Ice Rose to take down Rylet and Arby defenses. So that is literally what her build is for. She's geared towards just that. She's never going to be drafted in RTA because she's a little too squishy and she's a little too glass cannon for that type of gameplay. But in Guild Wars and such, she is very, very strong. Alright, moving on, we have my Researcher Carrot here, still rocking a very solid build here. Nothing's really changed from last time, but I do know that you guys love seeing the carrots in RTA in action. I do tend to draft her sometimes when the opponent does not have any ice units. If they have ice units, do not even think about drafting Carrot because it's not going to work. If they have Kraus, Seaside Bellonas especially, it's going to be a nightmare for you because you're not going to be hitting anything. Now, personally, I think Proof of Valor is one of the best artifacts to be running on Researcher Carrot. It just gives her that immense bulk that it's really hard to take down, right? You can see she's fairly tanking almost 1,300 defense and 13,000 HP, plus she grants herself a shield every single turn once she's hit. So she is very, very bulky, and the Proof of Valor does help her survive that much longer. She's at 200-something speed because she does work as a cleaver against very squishy units, so that is something that I have been using her for, and she has a bit of effectiveness as well to land some of her burns. Alright, moving on here, we have Achates, who's had kind of a little shift in gear, not too dramatic, but she is now not on a full HP set. She is on some resist pieces right here, and it's really only leftover gear that I have on her. I would love to get her effect res higher, but I only really use her with Dark Corvus and General Purrgis in Guild Wars sometimes. So yeah, she doesn't need too much res because she can give herself a res buff with her exclusive equipment. But here are the substats on all her pieces of gear. The 100 effect res just makes sure she can't get debuffed by random DPS units. Obviously, dedicated debuffers will be landing things on her. Yeah, she's on Rod of Amaryllis to help her with the healing output, and here we go, the exclusive equipment increases the effect res for 2 turns after using her S3. So overall, very happy with how she performs. Her speed is also very solid, making sure that she is able to heal up all of my slower units. Okay, so moving on here, we have Tamarinne, who I've been using so much in PvE content, in expeditions, and everything. Now, her gear is really bad. I mean, you have green pieces of gear, level 71 boost, 75 ring, right? These things are not amazing pieces of gear, however, they work. Right? They give her a bit of bulk to survive. She has a pretty decent amount of speed to cycle. She doesn't need effectiveness or effect res for how I use her, mostly for expeditions, raids, things like that. So, you know, she's perfectly fine the way she is here. And yeah, so these boots, they roll a bit of bulk. I don't really need too much speed on her anyway, so this is perfectly fine. Although she is running Touch of Rekos as her artifact. This actually helps her quite a bit in the I believe the Ice Expedition, because I do run her as my healer, as my CR pusher in there. So this actually does help quite a bit to keep her alive. I have Falconer Kluri as well for the little bit of passive healing. So that compensates for her low bulk here in her stats. Alright, moving on to the ice units, we have Luna to start things off, and she is still a one-shot queen. She is amazing unit. And what I do is I'll bring her with Oxlots. Oxlot just boosts her. She soul burns and absolutely destroys any unit that you want. Now her stats here are fairly low, right? Crit damage is good, but the attack is fairly low. I really only have spare gear on her, as you can, I mean, blue ring, right? It's not the best gear. However, it works. She can one-shot things like, you know, tanky counter Charles, just absolutely one-shot him, destroy him. She can one-shot Kraus as well. She is a very strong unit with an attack buff. Now, she is on Portrait of the Saviors. I don't have a plus 31 to give her, but, I mean, every little bit of damage counts, and because she's doing the one-shots, Portrait works fantastically with her there. I don't even have her exclusive equipment maxed here, but I do have the one that grants an extra turn after she destroys somebody. So she'll, you know, delete a unit off the map with her S3, and then she can follow up with an S1 into a second unit, potentially killing them if they're squishy, or softening up for the next turn. Alright, moving on here, we have Sigret. Yeah, absolutely amazing wyvern killer here. And I have stripped some of her gear. Like, she's changed a little bit, right? Her attack has fallen by quite a bit, but it's okay. My wyvern team still works. It's not as consistent because I actually switched up Seaside Bellona's build. However, Sigret here able to do her job, land her debuffs, and do the things that she was meant to do. 85% crit rate is perfectly fine on her because she gains 15%, because she has elemental advantage over the wyvern, so she's going to be at 100%, never missing her crits against wyvern there. We have Daydream Joker as well here for the additional damage, and her exclusive equipment for the S2, right? When she does S2 into an S1, the activation condition is no longer 50%, it'll be 75%. Alright, so that's my Sigret right there. Fairly standard stuff, right? I can definitely put her on better gear eventually, you know, once I get more hand-me-downs from my other units. Alright, here's my Krau. He's not changed too much at all here. As you can see, I'm still lacking. Like, this helmet isn't that great. Would like more HP, right? Maybe more speed and defense. This rolled quite well, but I want to keep my Krau on effect res. I want him to have 150%, mostly because I'm not running immunity on him, and also because people nowadays don't really expect Kraus with too much effect res. Most people's Kraus maybe have like 80 to 100, and they stack the HP to like 24, 25k. Mine's on the squishy side. He's definitely not very tanky. However, I do like the effect res, like I said, it screws over low effectiveness Falconer Kluris and things in RTA, and overall just a fantastic bait unit in Guild Wars. Alright, and he is on a plus 30 Aureus here, you know, just increasing the bulk of the team and taking some damage so that he can activate his S3 a little bit sooner. Alright, moving on, we have Ice Rose here, who's undergone a slight change here and there. She's a little bit faster at 250 speed. She is, and I mean, as you can see, like, this weapon's not even reforged. It rolled horribly, but it had 11 speed, so she's on it, right? She doesn't require the most insane gear. Like, this only has 12 speed on the helmet to work. But yeah, so I use her as a slow cleave, pusher, so she'll go ahead and push my team up. Usually I draft her with Lidica, and people tend to ban the Lidica because she's much faster. But then, Rose will go ahead and push up your 3 DPS units, and then you can cut through things like ML Hastes if you're drafting Arby. You can push up things like Watcher Schuri, C-Doms even, right? So it's a really strong utility unit to have for RTA, especially if you enjoy cleaving. She's on Bastion of Purrgis because I do enjoy keeping my DPS units alive. Bastion also allows her to go ahead and allows me to basically ignore Celine's, right? Celine's, they'll draft into things like Rose, things like C-Dom, but having Bastion here ensures that my units will survive the Celine counter, even if she gets the attack buff. And then that is a really strong thing to have. So your DPS units at least get 1 hit in, right? In the case of Arbiter Vildred, he won't even die to Celine's, at least with my defensive stats. Alright, so yeah, there's Rose right there. Moving on here, we have Karin, or Karin. So Karin here we have on a destruction set, and I might switch her build up a little bit. She does reasonable damage with good effectiveness. Now, the reason I say I want to switch her build up a little bit is she was actually a really strong secondary damage dealer for Wyvern to go along with my Sigret, but I recently had to switch her back to Torn Sleeve. I used to have her on a Daydream Joker, but the reason why I had to switch to Torn Sleeve is because my Seaside Bellona build changed, and that screwed up the turn rotations and stuff for Wyvern. So now I need the extra debuffs on the Wyvern in order to ensure that my DPS units survive. So that's quite unfortunate, but it's okay. Alright, moving on here, we have Kise. Yeah, I want to try to get better gear on her, but she's speed-tuned right now. She's speed-tuned to go with my Angelica, and it works out quite well for sniping things like Arbiter Vildred's. So I do keep her on this build right here, and she's actually really solid for RTA as well. Very much enjoying how much damage she's able to output. Alright, but yeah, there's her gear right here. Mostly going for some speed, making sure she's maxed out on crit chance, and going for some attack and crit damage here and there whenever I can. She's on a plus 30 Portrait of Saviors because her job is to one-shot for her S3, and then follow up with an S2. Now, I might consider something like a Wind Rider or something like that. I haven't tested it out yet, but I know some people do use it on her, and it would go along pretty well with her skill 2 here, so we'll have to see. Alright, so my Cerise here is not built, so we're going to skip over her, and we're going to take a look at Flan. Cerise will be built hopefully by next month. I do need to get some extra gear for her, because right now she'd be way too slow with too little effectiveness with the gear I currently have, without, because I don't want to strip my Lidica and stuff. Alright, Flan here, fairly bulky. Her speed is quite good. As you can see, she doesn't even have Reforged boots, but yeah, it's pretty decent speed substats on all of her pieces here. Rocking a level 67 chest piece there, but has defensive substats, has the speed. She doesn't need to be incredibly fast. In fact, I'll probably end up slowing her down quite a bit more. I'll probably replace her ring with a slower effectiveness ring, just so I can maybe give this to someone like Cerise or something later down the line, and then maybe reforge her boots in order to compensate for the drop of speed in her ring. But yeah, her effectiveness, very solid. She acts as a kind of a secondary soul giver with her Unseen Observer here. It gives me 10 souls, allows my DPS to soul burn. She has the utility of pushing up my teams in RTA, potentially defense breaking the opponent's teams. It really depends on the draft. If I have a stripper that I know is going to be going through, I can go ahead and pick Flan. She's also a really good CR pusher as well, so she can push up units if you see that the speed isn't going your way. Like if your DPS isn't going to be taking a turn, you can use her to push your team up, and it works. Alright, so that's Flan right there. Let's move on over to Seaside Bellona. Seaside Bellona here, yeah, as you can see, her build has definitely changed. She's dropped in attack, but she's increased her defense, dropped in speed, increase in crit damage, and increase in effectiveness. Now, you're probably wondering, wow, she has a lot of effectiveness. Yeah, she does. This is mostly because I like landing debuffs against more tanky units who tend to have more effect res. So this is geared towards an RTA type of build. Landing those defense breaks on things like Krau's, landing them on things like Ruel is very, very powerful. I mean, these are kind of garbage boots, but we're using them just because we need defensive stats here. I do need to craft better boots. I would love to get you know, some attack percents on my rings. I love to get a little bit like crit damage on the boots here with like defense and HP. So yeah, there's still a lot of room for improvement here. This is just testing her out right now. She's still on drink. She is still able to do quite a bit of chip damage over time, right? Her goal is to just survive the battle and yeah, sustain, right? Sustain. I do wish I had her on lifesteal again. Lifesteal is such a fun set to have on her, but you'll see later that I switched the gear around so I can give the lifesteal to another unit. Alright, so let's go ahead and continue here. We have Dizzy coming up. Still on counter, still on immunity. Swapped, I think, the ring out here. But here are all of her pieces. No effectiveness, nothing. This weapon really stinks, but yeah, we need to farm Azimanic again at some point. Alright, but yeah, she's really tanky here, almost 1,500 defense, almost 18,000 HP, and she's on a counter build, really just there to sustain, to strip buffs with her Aiel Violin. She has quite a bit of effect res too, so against DPS units that have no effectiveness, that are trying to debuff her, she has a 75% chance to resist anything they throw at her. Her effectiveness is quite low, but again, you don't really care if you're, you know, debuffing high effect res units. You're really just there to go ahead and try to screw over the DPS, right? She's on a plus 30 Aiel Violin to dispel buffs whenever she counters, which is actually what makes her so scary. I don't get to use her much because she does get banned in RTA whenever I try to draft her. So I guess she does her job. Alright, moving on here, we have Fairytale Tenebria, who, yeah, not on the most excellent build here, but she works. I don't really use her in RTA. I sometimes draft her in Arena, Guild Wars, things like that. As you can see, the gear substats are kinda awful, but hey, she doesn't need the best of gear to work, and that's why she's such a popular unit right now. Quite annoying to deal with as well. Alright, and there you guys have it. So see, yeah, these boots here can definitely, if I had 85 boots that are reforgeable, that's plus 5 speed. Alright, so I can potentially get her even faster. I mean, things like this helmet, like where'd the rolls even go on this helmet, right? I have her on Sierra Ren. Aiel Violin might be good on her, but I'm finding Sierra Ren for the additional chances to just, these are such annoying debuffs, right? Decrease hit chance, silence, sleep. It is really annoying to deal with. So this has actually been a really nice artifact for me. I do need to max it out, but I just currently do not have the artifact charms for it. So there you guys go there. Next up, we have Luluca with her new skin. It looks absolutely amazing. Such a beautiful unit. And yeah, there we go. Here are her stats here. She's been slowly building up quite the impressive stat line here for a PvE unit. This is just a lot of spare gear that I don't have anyone else that can use. I mean, this is actually a really good chest piece if I reforge it for additional crit chance there. But yeah, same thing with this necklace. But yeah, she just works in PvE. I use her for expeditions, raids. I use her literally every day, everywhere. So that's why she does have quite a decent stat spread here for that. But again, she's on like blue boots and blue necklace, so not getting the best of gear, but enough that she works. She's holding Midnight Bloom here to help herself out with the additional 16% crit chance, brings her up to 99%, which is good enough. And her exclusive equipment is here to have an extra chance of granting an attack on S1, right? So you can do a double S1. Gives her the additional chance of defense break, which is very useful for things like expeditions and raid. So that's the reason why I have that there. Midnight Bloom also helps out with things like Commander Lorena, who I run with her all the time. They're like best friends in my team comps. So it does help Commander Lorena max out her crit rate as well. Alright, so moving on here, we have my Angelic Montmorancy, who is built to literally resist everything. So effect res up at 250, and she's really just here to cleanse my team, right? In Guild Wars and things like that, where the opponents are tending to run Cerises, a lot of F10As and things like that, definitely very useful to have a lot of resistance. Now, I do plan on building a Kitty Clarissa. Once I do, I might strip some of the gear from Montmorancy, might strip some of the gear from Lilias, and rearrange it so that I can get a Kitty Clarissa with almost 300% effect resistance, thanks to the help of things like Strat Gauntlet. But as of right now, I do not have her built up. I do have everything ready for her, though, so we will be doing that hopefully next month. But yeah. That's my Montmorancy here. I use her mostly for PvE, but you know, whenever the situation calls for it, that I need a bunch of effect res, she is my go-to. Alright, my Angelica is not built, but here we are with the Diene right here. And Diene is on a very solid build here with increased speed. So she used to be only like 214, 215 or something like that, but now I've swapped out a couple of pieces. She's maintaining the 150% effect res, which I do appreciate. Rocking pretty solid defense. Her HP is quite low, but it's alright. It's manageable here. But the speed to get to 235, so I can go ahead and pop her S3 and get anti-crit on everybody before the opponent's DPS moves, is such a nice thing to have. I've been really enjoying using her in all aspects of PvP. She's on Rod of Amaryllis. I might swap out her artifact to her own artifact. Just because it gives AoE heals, and it allows me to actually draft her into ML Kraus, potentially, because the AoE heals will actually help sustain the entire team instead of just one unit. I did pull a couple of copies of it from the, what is it, the group limited banner thing, so maybe, perhaps. It needs a bit of testing first, though. Alright, moving on here, we have our Alencia. Now, she is the reason why my Ken is stripped, because my Alencia here rocking some pretty solid stats. Now, she's gained quite a bit of defense from the last build that I had her on. Her HP is, you know, not 20k, but you see, I have a bunch of pieces that I haven't reforged on the right side there. That will definitely get me over 20k HP. But the thing that's really solid about her is her speed now. Rocking 230 speed, she's able to get a defense buff up really soon for the team. Now you might be wondering, whoa, but how about her stripping the opponents, right? Yeah, it depends. You can always hold off on her strip. She's fast enough that she'll cycle for a second turn anyway for the defense buff, but you know, grouping her with Diene, if getting an anti-crit buff and a defense buff up really early is super, super strong. It is definitely not something to to scoff at, right? So yeah, she took Ken's weapon and Ken's boots, which did give Ken a lot of his crit chance and crit damage. But as you can see now, Alencia is almost maxed crit rate, which is fantastic. I haven't been able to achieve this on her ever. But then, yeah, if I reforge her necklace here and reforge this ring, she would be, I think, at 100%, or at least 99% or something. She's on Draco Plate to compensate for her lower crit damage, so she gets 30% extra there, and it gives her a bit of extra bulk as well to help her with her relatively low HP compared to what I had her on before. But this speed is definitely something that is worth it. Alright, so moving on here, we have Lilibet, and Lilibet, she needs to be on a plus 30 portrait. That would help her with her relatively low attack here, but again, I do draft her with something like Rose, and she pairs really well with Melissa in Guild Wars to go ahead and destroy RB and Violet team comps. That's really all I use her for. Now, I boosted her speed up quite a bit though. She's almost 200 speed, which is not too bad at all. With a plus 30 portrait and this amount of speed, she's going to be very strong and potentially wouldn't even need a pusher against slower Vildreds, right? You just need some form of an attack buffer so that she can cut through those counter RBs and potentially a soul carrier to soul burn as well. But yeah, there we go. Pretty solid. Very happy with her performance overall, and I do bring her to Guild Wars fairly frequently. Alright, so moving on here, we got Helga. Oh yeah, that's right, you see this set right here. So, she's been changed up quite a bit. Now, I had quite a few counter pieces just randomly laying around. I said, you know what? You know what would be really funny? Just build a counter Helga, because why not? She's not really used too often for me in RTA and such. She is a fun unit to use, but not very overly reliable, right? There's too many things that could potentially hurt her. She does have a speed imprint, which is kind of nice. So if your opponent's drafting a lot of ice units and no fire units, she could be a potentially fun pick. I haven't tested her too extensively. I've used her in Arena and Guild Wars, but I haven't used her too extensively in like RTA or mock battles and such. But she's going to be quite interesting to see her performance. Now her necklace here, I wish it was on a crit damage necklace with some like crit chance substats, but I don't really have one that's on immunity, so it's quite unfortunate. If I do eventually get one that has that, I could potentially change her artifact to Alencia Wrath or something to compensate for her crit chance. But yeah, overall, not too bad whatsoever, just all things considered, right? Immunity counter sits there, will potentially defense break, do a little bit of chip damage. She has a bit of effectiveness to help her out in that regard as well, and pretty decent bulk. She is on this flower shower thing, which is it's not a fantastic artifact. It's just whenever an enemy is defeated, she does gain an attack buff. It does help her quite a bit with some of her damage, and it does help her a little bit with her effectiveness for landing defense breaks. Alright, so moving on here, we have Yufine, who she did actually have I think a better necklace earlier that gave her like about 90-something% crit chance. But overall, I don't really use her all too often. She's used in expeditions as of right now, but that's about it. I don't really bring her into Guild Wars and such either anymore because they're just better options for me right now. But she is fun to have, and I mean, she's wearing gear that no other unit really uses. She's fun with Oxlots, and that's pretty much it in terms of how much I use her. I would like to use her more. I would love to make a really fast, like 200 speed Yufine that can go and just absolutely obliterate a knight or two on the opponent's side of the field. But yeah, until I can get her really fast, there's no way I can reliably draft her in something like RTA. Here we have Hellcutter on her to compensate for her crit chance. I mean, by the time she takes her turn, if I use her in Guild War, you know, Crimson Armin works really well with her. Just keeps her protected. She'll go after the opponents go, and then you'll have 100% crit chance from Hellcutter by then, and then you'll just nuke somebody. Alright, she is running her exclusive equipment here for additional damage on her S1. A bit of effectiveness. You know, the effectiveness doesn't really matter too much because you're not going to be reliably debuffing the opponent's units with her. She's really just there to deal monstrous amount of damage, and yeah, really fun unit to use whenever the situation calls for her. Alright, moving on here, we have Charles. Yeah, those of you guys who are veterans of the channel, you guys know my Charles here. Absolutely love him. 99.8% crit rate, 0.2% chance to miss. Never missed a crit before, at least in my time of using him. He has never missed, so that is pretty nice. He has immunity and counter, very, very bulky, 18,000 HP, almost 1,400 defense. Fallen off kind of in RTA. I don't really draft him ever in there unless I'm very confident that I won't get nuked down by my opponents. He's on Elbrus Ritual Sword. I would love to plus 30 this, but unfortunately I do not have enough copies to do so. And I'm keeping I have one other spare Elbrus, and I'm keeping it for something, maybe like another knight that might use it down the line. But as of right now, only plus 15. Kind of sad. His EE here is maxed out, right? Trying to get the additional S1 into an S2 proc chance. Obviously, you're on counter, right? And Elbrus. You want to RNG luck sack your opponents, and that's what he's there for. Alright, so there's my Charles. Moving on here, we have Falconer Kluri. Very scuffed build here, but she's speed tuned. She's speed tuned. So here's her gear, 250 something speed. I know some people have been saying in that Seaside Bellona RTA video that I posted, they're like, what do you mean, you know, that you're not cleaving, you're not going for speed? Your Falconer Kluri outsped their F10A. My Falconer Kluri is slow. Most people's Falconer Kluris, at least at my level that I'm playing at, are like 260, 270 speed, right? this Falconer Kluri is really slow. She's only here to be speed tuned with Kise. She'll go before Kise, strip Rylet's evasion. Kise will go ahead and snipe Rylet out of the game. So really useful in that regard. She also works really well with something like Angelica to potentially defense break something before Angelica pops the her immortality that prevents reviving, and then your DPS will be able to snipe that unit down, right? Whether it's a tanky one or not. Alright, so here we go. We have Adamant Shield. She is, I draft her in RTA quite a bit as a first pick whenever they ban Arbiter Vildred. So she is an Adamant Shield holder. I might draft Krau or something afterwards for the Aureus to balance things out, to help my team sustain. But yeah, she's a very strong unit overall. I do need to give her better gear. I don't have many good accessory pieces with HP percent main stats, so definitely need to look out for some of those with speed. Alright, but that's my Kluri right there. Moving on, we got Celine. Yeah, I like my Celine fast, so there you guys go. Here are her stats. Right, so she is used to counter people who pick things like Oxlots into me. I don't have my Oxlots built very fast. In fact, his gear switches like every other week. But my Oxlots is now speed tuned to go with Angelica. I've made him faster, I believe, in previous weeks, where he was like 255 speed or something like that. Again, not amazing speeds, but it'll screw me over in Guild Wars because I really needed him to go after Angelica so that Angelica can pop her revive block, right? And then you can boost up your DPS and they can nuke things like Arbiter Vildred's down without him coming back and nuking you in return. Her artifact here is plus 30. I used Bottle of Knowledge for it. I only had one copy, but I bottled it all the way to max because I think Celine, I mean, getting screwed over with this artifact not proccing just sucks. If you're going to use this artifact, it's recommended that you have it maxed out, just so you have the 100% chance so that she can guarantee the nuke on the opponents. Now, I do draft Celine in other situations as well. She's actually very strong against things like Elena, or Elena, however you pronounce her name. Whenever she's drafted against something like my Lidica, I'll instantly pick Celine, and people will never ban the Celine because they're like, why are you drafting this? But when Elena procs her S2, it's a passive skill and it's a non-attack skill, so Celine will actually go ahead and snipe down their DPS before Elena can actually pop an S3. So it is actually quite useful. She has a lot of secret little hidden matchups that a lot of people don't know about. So that's why I keep her built. I keep her fast as well, so she can cycle through and get her intuition back up. And yeah, otherwise, you know, fairly strong unit. Moving on here, we have my Scuffed Vildred. Yeah, some of his gear has been stripped off. He's not as good as he was before. But the reason why is because I actually prioritize some other units that I draft more often in RTA. My Vildred doesn't even have any imprints on him, so he's not even going to be providing me a speed boost if I draft him. So he's on some spare pieces of gear here. I prioritized getting 100% crit rate on him. Damage came second, right? Crit damage and attack. He's a good cleanup unit, don't get me wrong. He's a fairly good cleanup unit. He's on Portrait of the Savior, so if he goes second after like my Arby or something, he'll be able to deal quite a bit of damage. I might actually end up changing his artifact out. Maybe if I can get a second Elias knife going, I might go for that. But we'll see. We'll see. But as of right now, he works for what he does. He actually still does pretty decently against Tempest Surin and stuff. The only thing is that you would need to bring a defense breaker with him. So I tend to use something like Falconer Kluri or Flan, defense break a unit so that Vildred can ensure a kill on whatever unit it is. And then that ensures that he procs his S1 off of his S3. Or sorry, procs his S2, I guess. Procs his S2 off of his S3, and then you can kill Tempest Surins that way. Alright, moving on here, we have regular Earth Bellona, and she's re-geared to be a pseudo DPS, like a sub DPS for my A13 team. So here's her stats here, not incredible stuff, right? It's just bulk for her to survive, a bit of speed, so she goes first and does the little defense break. 100% crit chance and a little bit of crit damage to ensure that she can deal quite a bit of damage. Her S1 does hit quite hard, so it is something, it is actually quite nice to have. A little bit of effectiveness, just enough to be able to debuff A13, and that's about it. As you can see, like defense ring, right? Crit chance necklace. Not fantastic stuff, but it works. She's also on Bloodstone. This is why I did prioritize things like crit chance, a little bit of crit damage, because then she'll be able to heal by quite a good margin of the damage that's being dealt. So she does act as kind of a pseudo healer as well in my PvE teams. Helps Tamarinne keep the team alive, because Tamarinne's heal cycle quite fast, but it's usually not enough to sustain the whole team, especially if I'm bringing in a bunch of squishy units to things like A13. Right here I have her set to the EE that dispels a buff. This helps me kind of dispel the enrage buff that's on A13 whenever it does come up. She's not my primary debuffer. That's going to be Iseria right here, who's coming up next, but she does help whenever Iseria is on cooldown. Alright, speaking of Iseria here, there we go. This is her build. She's been softened up quite a bit. Her defense and HP aren't quite as high as it used to be, but it works. Again, I use her in PvE only, and she works for A13. So yeah, I ended up putting a little bit more damage on her in terms of attack. I mean, you can kind of see this right here. Not the best helmet, right? Not the best of anything, but she does have enough effectiveness to debuff A13, and she has enough speed to tune with Tamarinne, and that's about it. That's all you need. She has the bulk to survive, and yeah, she's pretty much good to go, right? I'm rocking a bunch of spare gear. Nothing too impressive on her. We are running Sachet Atanes though. This is a really good artifact on her for A13. Helps you push up your team when you're killing the ads that are spawned in the boss wave. So it does help you cycle your units faster, and it helps cycle her off of her cooldowns as well, because her S3, the buff block here, is what makes A13 so easy to do. Alright, moving on here, we have my Earth Rin. Swapped out a couple pieces here. She's a bit more tanky, which is always appreciated. A bit faster as well. So she is on some support counter pieces right here. You know, health, speed, effect res, effectiveness, defense, all that good stuff. These pieces, you know, not too bad. Overall, I really like her as a unit. I would love to get her to like 230, 240 speed. Probably not going to be feasible without stripping a lot of my better units. But yeah, counter immunity on her works quite well. Again, you would bring her to a team that's heavily ice-based, right? You don't want to bring her to anything that has fire in it. You kind of don't want to bring her against teams that have strippers as well. She does not fare well in those situations either. But yeah, overall, very happy with her build. Pretty decent effectiveness, can strip DPS units, put defense breaks on them. Decent effect res, I mean, not amazing, but you know, if a DPS unit is trying to debuff her or something, it's not gonna work most of the time. She's on Celestine here. It helps her heal off of her counter attacks, which is pretty nice for sustaining. And her EE here is the one that dispels a debuff from all allies before applying buffs. This allows you to actually get rid of things like unbuffable on your team, which is actually quite nice. I do use her quite a bit in PvE, things like Hall of Trials. I use her quite often there. Not too often in RTA, but I do sometimes use her in Guild War. Sometimes for fun, I'll bring her into Arena as well. Alright, moving on here, we have Roana, my scuffed Roana build, because I had to take her ring for Momo on her effect res build. So I do need to get a new effect res ring. She's on a really scuffed one here. But yeah, here's her gear set. She doesn't need to be extremely fast. 170 is good enough for cycling. I do want to get, again, an effect res ring so that it helps her not get debuffed. But she has pretty decent defense, pretty decent health here. Overall, really happy with her build. Now, I do want to mention, oh yeah, and it had really, really bad boots. It had a bit of effect res and health, so that's why I slapped it on her. But I do want to mention that Stella Harpa is such a fantastic artifact here. You bring her against Cereses, bring her against F10As, those combo teams, right? And not only is she an earth element, which helps her potentially dodge those attacks and debuffs, but it also helps you dispel debuffs from allies. Bringing her against AoE teams is fantastic. She's a very, very strong unit. Into things like counter dizzies, into things like bromans, right? She's actually very strong. Very underrated. She again has a lot of hidden matchups, kind of like Celine. A lot of hidden matchups that people aren't very aware of. Alright, moving on here, we have General Purrgis, Ultimate Wyvern tank right here. rocking some, fairly standard stuff. I might actually end up stripping some of this gear for Fallen Cecilia once I try to get her built up. She's not fully leveled yet, but she will be soon enough. Hopefully in next month's update, you guys will be able to see that. But yeah, he does quite well in Wyvern. That's really all he's used for. Sometimes I bring him into Guild Wars with Dark Corvus. He acts as a light bait. With Proof of Valor, I mean, things like Revenant Violence and stuff, they'll never be able to cut through him, not when he's this tanky. His exclusive equipment here just allows you to push up your team even more, maxed out with the HP percent as well. So, there you guys have it for General Purrgis. Oh yeah, I do want to mention, he is now on immunity now, so it is actually quite nice. Helps him, the first wave of the ads on Wyvern can't actually poison him now, which is pretty decent. And in PvP, he can't get, stunned. Alright, so moving on here, we have Little Queen Charlotte, one of my favorite bruisers to use, rocking some pretty solid tanky stats here. Yeah, overall, really happy with how she is. I would love to put immunity on her, but then again, there's so many units out right now that strip anyway. If you're not taking turn 1, you're likely going to get stripped. So I found that it doesn't always come up where I'm like, oh man, I really wish I had immunity. So yeah, she's pretty decent. Except her boots. I hate her boots. Absolutely disgusting. Like, what is this? Absolutely disgusting. I would love to switch this off, but I've been having horrible boot luck lately with trying to get new ones. She is on a plus 27 Sigurd Scythe, which is really nice for helping her sustain and helping boost her attack as well whenever she's fairly low. I tend to save her S3 as well for the lifesteal properties on the skill to help her heal up and keep herself healthy throughout the fight. Alright, moving on here, we have Crimson Armin. I use her a lot in Guild Wars, and that's pretty much it. I would like her to be faster. I mean, I've had a friend who has built a 250 speed Carmen for potential Guild War fights where Arbiter Vildreds are like 230, 240 speed. She's actually very strong as a unit. She just has low base speed, so it's hard to get the speed on her without potentially stripping better units. But as of right now, speed immunity set, a little bit of bulk. She's there to tank. She does her job perfectly fine. She's on a plus 15 Aureus here just to give a little extra bulk to the team, help absorb some damage. She doesn't have the highest HP pool, so I don't really feel incentivized to upgrade this Aureus, even though I do have the imprints for it. But yeah, overall, she does her job, and love her as a unit. Next up, we have Tempest Surin. So Tempest Surin here, mine is very scuffed. I don't have lifesteal gear at all. Like, my lifesteal gear sucks. So here we go. This is a random weapon that I had laying around. It rolled very low. It was a pretty awful weapon roll. Very sad. Perfect substats. Very sad rolls. We have a lot of HP percents on these pieces of gear here, and I do not like it. They're the free ones. They don't contain defense. They don't contain crit damage, which really sucks. I would love to have some of that on her. But yeah, I'd love to get her HP lower as well to help synergize with her lifesteal and her passive. The lower her HP, the easier it is to lifesteal above half her health so that it keeps her passive active so she can't get one-shot by things, which is pretty nice. Yeah, this boot here, also low rolled. I had to reforge it just for the speed, for the little bit of substats here, but unfortunately, again, you see you have flat attack here, or flat health, which is not contributing too well to her health pool. I would love to get more defense instead, but unfortunately it's not going to work out. Moonlight Dreamblade here for the evasion. It actually comes in quite handy, helping her survive those critical moments and allowing her to get the attack buff to then counter in return and steal back a bunch of health. Alright, so moving on here, we have Celeste. I know a lot of you guys have been asking about my Celeste here. Her artifact isn't even enhanced, but Celeste here, very, very fun unit to use. See, look, can I get Moonlight summons? Can they just give me Celeste? I'll pass up a Moonlight 5-star to just get imprints on Celeste. I would love that. Thank you. Thank you, Smilegate. Anyway, here are her stats here. Fairly slow Celeste, I know. I can get her to over 300 speed, but that would require me to strip Lidica, which I'm not comfortable with doing. So right now we're just making do with this. She is one of my fastest units as of right now. I think she's tied with Rin for the fastest units that I have. And she is really strong, really strong for pushing up CDOM. And she has quite a bit of damage as well, right? She does quite a bit of chip damage. I don't have any effectiveness on her. You might be wondering, well, don't you want to push back with her S2? It doesn't matter, because the units you're going to be attacking with Celeste are going to be units that don't have high effect res, right? You're going to be, pushing back things like Acids, what's her face, Cerises, right? All those other fast, speedy units. And with 15% effectiveness, you're going to do it, because your opponent's not going to have any effect res on those units. Alright, so yeah, there we go. Celeste is, my go-to for speed contesting. She also has speed imprints here as well, so she can potentially help her team outspeed as well. She pairs very well with Lidica, actually, which we'll get to right here. So, Lidica, right, actually upgraded a couple pieces of her gear, getting some faster speed on her. Again, she's very slow, 275, not great, but one of my most drafted units in RTA. So only one piece that has over 20, actually, no, never mind, two pieces have 21 speed, never mind. But chest piece, very slow. I just recently got an upgrade from 13 speed up to 17 on a speed set. So looking for more chest pieces like this in the future. Would love a faster necklace. 16 speed is very slow, but having the stipulation of going for only crit chance necklaces to work on her, it kind of hurts. Same thing with her rings. She has to run an effectiveness ring, and this is my fastest speed set effectiveness ring, 13 speed. It's very sad. It's just my effectiveness rings never roll speed. So it's all up to RNG whether or not I can get her faster or not. All right, and her boots right here actually rolled really well. My favorite pair of support unit boots right here. It rolled high, so very happy about that. And yeah, she's doing fairly well. She's on Song of the Stars here, which helps me debuff with a target debuff. Helps actually against things like Rylets. I can go ahead and just smack Rylet, put a target debuff on him, and then my units have a higher chance of hitting him, which is quite nice. So she is quite good for utility. I might end up putting something like Guiding Light on her. We'll have to see. I do really like the utility of this against evasion units. But yeah, again, we'll have to see. Alright, moving on here, we have Watcher Schuri. So, one of the units I revamped, much stronger now, much strong, gained over, I think, almost 300 attack here, and his crit damage stayed the same, gained a lot more speed as well. So, very happy with how he's turned out, and again, he can gain even more attack. I just haven't, this is not a great weapon, I don't want to reforge it, but potentially, something that I can look into. Yeah, so he has a pretty decent, this helmet I just recently rolled, really good crit chance, very happy with that. Again, this is a really good necklace as well, really good crit chance. And flat attack ring, he actually works really well with flat attack stats. That's how I'm able to get his attack so high. It's because all these random pieces here have like flat attack here and there sprinkled in, so it's actually quite nice to get his attack up a bit higher. Bit of speed here as well, and attack percent substat to go with the flat attack main stat is actually a great combination for him. And again here, so we see this rolled pretty decently actually for a purple piece. The last line here was a 7% attack roll, which made this piece like godly. Yeah, so reforce that immediately. He's pretty fast now. I don't really need to rely on too many units pushing him forward. He's going to be taking the turn with a Lidica, CDOM, anything that pushes slightly. He's going to take the turn, and he's gonna destroy some things. And so even if I don't have a push or anything like that, if I have someone who can go first and just kill some unit, like a CDOM, for instance, he can push himself up with Achates. This actually lets him cut in. If some units are being pushed up faster than he is, he can actually cut in the opponent's units and snipe somebody down. I do need a plus 30 to this. I would like a plus 30 Sachet, but I'm contemplating switching this off to Guiding Light, which would give him actually some more protection, so people can't snipe him down with single target units, and then he'll be guaranteed a turn to snipe down one of theirs. Alright, moving on here, we got Broman. Yeah, love my Broman, and you guys know it. So, he's on his regular build here. you know, weapons, speed set weapons, they never roll speed for me. Speed set helmets, they never roll speed for me. This has pretty decent effectiveness though. That's why I'm also running things like Unity on him, which is actually quite nice. Things like this, people might never consider rolling, but it went to speed, so I kept going, got a bit of effectiveness, got a bit of bulk. It worked out. This is a really decent chess piece right there. And they rolled high, too. So we have, yeah, pretty decent necklace here overall. Got effectiveness ring again. Effectiveness rings suck for me. They never roll speed. And a Unity boot, which actually high rolled into effectiveness, which is quite nice. I wish this didn't go into attack. If this went to like more effectiveness or health, this would be a godly boot, but even then, 26% effectiveness helps out quite a bit. So very happy with my Broman. He's on Abyssal Crown for the potential stuns after he strips. And Unity actually helps him do a lot of dual attacks, quite a bit of dual attacks. There's almost a 10% chance to heal dual attack. And because I run him with other really fast units, there's a good chance that he will hop in and potentially screw over some units with his pushbacks. Alright, moving on, we have Silverblade Araminta. Speaking of units I like to run with Broman, yeah, Silverblade Araminta here is looking very solid. So, you know, I'm looking for attack and effectiveness substats with some speed here and there. Not really going too much for the bulk, because, you know, if you're bringing her, the opponents should be stun locked. So that is the reason why. You know, attack percent necklace here, got a bit of speed on it, actually this is a really nice ring with effectiveness main, but a lot of attack substats. I think this was the arena, free arena ring, actually rolled quite well for me. And same thing here, attack and effectiveness. These are like awkward pieces that no one else can really use, and Araminta really put them to good use, so very happy about that. She is on Tagahel's Ancient Book because I do not have other Abyssal Crowns. I would love for Abyssal Crown to show up again in the Powder Shop, but unfortunately, we make do with what we have. But Tagahel's Ancient Book actually helps quite a bit for helping soul burn some of my other units that I like to bring with her. So things like my specially changed Wanda, which I'll get into in a bit. Alright, moving on here, we got Magic Scholar Doris. So Miss Doris here, yeah, fairly tanky unit. Very nice Soul Weaver with a defense buff. She is really strong for tanking dark units like Rylets and Arby's, and I do bring her to Guild Wars quite often. I do need to bring her into RTA more often if I see people drafting things like Rylets and stuff. She's actually a really strong unit. It's just that her gear is kind of scuffed. I would love more defense on her. She's quite squishy. Her defense is not that high. Her HP is pretty solid though. I would like a bit more speed on her too. But yeah, she is on Water's Origin, which helps her with survivability, helps her with the combat readiness as well, which is not too bad. Alright, moving on here, we got Ruel. She's been falling off quite a bit in RTA, mostly because of all the AoEs, all the debuffers. She can't really keep up with cleansing the team and such, but her build for me hasn't really changed. Still very tanky, still good effect res as well, 150 there. But high effect res units like this just don't cut it anymore in RTA. You need like 250 something if you're dedicated resisting, and yeah, otherwise you're gonna get debuffed by things like F10As, and you know, if your Ruel loses a turn, she is gonna be, your team is gonna be in big trouble, right? And, especially because her heals are single target, her cleanses are single target. It's gonna hurt quite a bit when she misses a turn. It's gonna set you back. So yeah. She's fallen off there, but I still use her all the time in Guild Wars. Really, really safe unit to bring to that. Alright, moving on, we have Commander Lorena, PvE Goddess right here. And yeah, these stats looking pretty nice. And the two copies of Lorena I actually pulled during the Mystic Summons, or yeah, my Mystic Summoning video where I went for Fallen Cecilia. I did some Galaxy Bookmark summons before that. Got 2 copies of Lorena, actually perfect amount. She's finally triple S'd. Very happy about that. She's just on a free attack set with a filler crit set in there. And I mean, these are not great pieces whatsoever, as you can tell. Not great pieces whatsoever. But it does give her a little bit of bulk to reach 1000 defense and 11k HP, which is very nice because in PvE, like raid and stuff, I like to auto with it, and if she's too squishy, she's just gonna like get one shot by things. So this actually helps her survive quite nicely. I gimped a bit of attack, crit damage and stuff for it, but it's so worth it. She's on a Daydream Joker right here, for obviously for PvE reasons. So yeah, she's my primary damage dealer for all that. Alright, moving on here, we have Dark Corvus. Yes, indeed. Dark Corvus here. His gear has been getting stripped off slowly and slowly, as you can tell. He doesn't even have 100% effect res anymore, but that's okay. He's not really used outside of Guild Wars, so I don't really mind this too much. Achates is good for cleansing, and General Purrgis takes most of the heat anyway. General Purrgis pushing my Dark Corvus up means that I don't need any speed on him whatsoever. He just gets a little bit here and there from random substats. He is on Strat Gauntlet, which will help him resist most things in Guild Wars, which is quite nice. However, I will be stripping this from him eventually. I'll plus 30 and strip it from him for Kitty Clarissa once I get her built up. Alright, so moving on here, we have ML Ken. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to... I want to share this with you guys, right? Recently, we had Automaton Tower give Attack Ring. And I was like, whoa, I am so gonna try for a new ML Ken ring. And guess what? We finally got it. As you can tell from these stats here, he used to have 1500 defense and like 15,000 HP, but now he's up to 18,000 HP and almost 1400 defense with his attack set. His attack set's actually kicking in, so he has almost 4,000 something attack, pretty decent crit damage. He doesn't need crit chance at all. Yeah, here we go. Here's the ring, right? Perfect subsets here. I wish it didn't roll into defense, but it rolled 2 times into crit damage here, very high rolls. I think it rolled 1 time into defense, and I think 2 times into flat defense or something. Yeah, wish it didn't roll into flat defense. Wish it rolled more to crit damage or defense here, but rolled very nicely, and I'm very happy that I got this ring. Most people probably pick like a crit damage attack set or attack ring or something like that. I don't know, but this was, oh, so nice, fit perfectly. And yeah, there you go. There's a attack boot here, free. All this gear was free, right? Helmet, chest piece were free from Hell Raid. These immunity pieces were free from a login event. This was free from Automaton Tower. This was free from some kind of attack set that was given out or something like that. And this is a very solid ML Ken. He's very tough to gear, but I'm so happy that my substats rolled perfectly for him. He is putting all these awkward pieces to use. Alright, he's on Sigret Scythe here, not on my plus 27 one, because I don't draft him as often as Little Queen Charlotte. Little Queen is better in RTA. ML Ken I use a lot in Guild Wars, actually. So if I need it, I'll switch his artifact with LQC's higher ranked up Sigret Scythe for more healing. But yeah, anyway, very solid ML Ken now, very happy with him, and I'd feel a lot more comfortable potentially drafting him as an anti-cleave unit in RTA. Alright, moving on, we have Arbiter Vildred. Nothing's changed with my RB here, but in case you guys want to see all of his stats, here you go. He's, yeah, he does alright. I first pick him whenever I can in RTA, and he puts in work. People have to counter him somehow. He demands answers whenever he gets drafted. So there you guys go. He's on Alexa's basket, and we'll love to plus 30 this, but as of right now, it's only plus 15, which is unfortunate. So not 40% chance to proc, only a 30%. But there he is. There he is. Moving on here, we have Crescent Moon Rin tied for my fastest unit here with Celeste. But Crescent Moon Rin is such a great unit. I like to draft her into things like Cerises, and other fast units that tend to speed contest. Obviously, mine's not a very fast ML Rin. I know people who have 290s, 300 speed ML Rins, but I have to spread my gear out somewhere. Oh yeah, here's my fastest effectiveness ring. 17 speed, but it's on a crit set, which sucks. But yeah, the other gear has to be spread out, so tried to balance it out. She actually is really tanky. 1300 defense is not easy to achieve on a thief, and 12,000 HP as well. So she is very tanky. I do like to bring her as a support unit for some bruiser comps as well. She'll outspeed their fastest unit, stun them or whatever, grant my team immunity. Very good against things like 8 high winds and such as well. She's on RNL as her artifact, allows her to cycle through her stuns, her immunity buffs, which actually procs quite often. 15% can be quite deceiving, yeah? As we all know from getting 15%ed my debuffs normally. Alright, so moving on here, we have my all-rounder Wanda, who I love bringing with Broman and Emma Laramintha. So here she is right here. Switched up her build. She's actually on a damage build now, keeping her speed relatively high. She's actually pretty decent, and can actually one-shot some Rylets, some squishier Rylets, which is quite nice. So here are all of her stats right now. Is you know, not the best pieces. This is all leftover gears. I just tried to make do with what I had. Some spare pieces like this that had no crit damage or anything like that. Just awkward that my other units didn't need. Just slapped it on her. Some old I-90s, right? And yeah, some awkward pieces like this. She has a little bit of effectiveness. She doesn't need too much. I mean, if you're gonna S3 into a DPS unit, you're getting the stun, right? You're going to land it on Rylet. There's no way Rylet with 0 effect res is gonna resist you. And she's on Guiding Light. So Guiding Light actually helps her stay protected, because I've had issues in the past where she does get sniped down, and I don't like that. So Guiding Light can help her, and after she takes her turn with her S3, it actually puts her into stealth as well. Actually, where is it? Something puts her into stealth. Yeah, her S3 puts her into stealth. I believe that's in her skill tree Awakening. So yeah, she'll be stealthed, and she won't be able to get hit. So she's a good unit to just sit in the back line and hit things, kind of like a pseudo Spectre Tenebria. So very excited to have her on a fairly nice DPS build here. Alright, moving on, we have Briar Witch Iseria. Yeah, finally done, finally built, no longer scuffed, as you can see. Now, I wish she was on immunity, but, you know, again, if you're not going first, you're likely getting stripped anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Alright, here are her stats right here. Very solid offensive stats. I decided to go for a DPS build, mostly because I love nuking things with her, and I have enough CR pushes from my other units that she'll work. So Rose and Flidica, Cdom, they come to mind, are very, very nice for getting her up there. I love using her with Rose especially. I would draft her with something like Arby and potentially even like a green Vildred, so that they can soften up units, and Briar Witch Iseria will never miss. Even if she has a blind debuff, because I'm running her on a Symbol of Unity. Now, if this thing is maxed, she'll get 20% hit chance here. Her passive gets 35%, so even if she's blind, she'll be able to hit any unit that doesn't have evasion or evasion type effects, like Moonlight Dreamblade and such. So I'm not really, so I do actually tend to bring her into things like Arby as well. Bring her into Arby when Arby revives and puts that blind debuff on your team. If she gets the blind debuff, doesn't matter. Because she's never gonna miss. So quite nice. I wish they buffed this so it was a higher hit chance, right? So you didn't necessarily have to use something like Symbol of Unity, and you can use other things like Guiding Light. Guiding Light would not be bad on her, but she is also my dedicated Rylet killer as well. I love bringing her to RB Rylet comps in RTA. So not something that, you know, you can bring Lilibet and Melissa into. I usually use them for Guild Wars, but she does really well against Rylets in RTA. Alright, so moving on here, we have my Scuffed Oxalots. A lot of Scuff units in this video here. And yeah, he's not very fast. 232 speed, not very fast at all. He's just on some random spare gear that had a bit of speed. He's actually on immunity, which is quite nice. Having him on immunity is pretty good. He has a bit of effectiveness too, which is, you know, not bad to have. Not bad to have. But yeah, overall, he's just here as a support. He's speed tuned for my Angelica, so Angelica go first. Oxalots can boost somebody up from the back lines, and then you can snipe down things like Arbiter Vildreds and other units. So it's not too bad. He's on Tagahel's Ancient Book, plus 30 right here, to give your DPS, whoever you're pushing up, additional souls, which is always nice for the soul burn. Alright, so there's my Oxalots right there. Moving on, we have Cdom. Now, Cdom is actually one of my best units now. She is so strong. So look at this stat spread here. Very decent attack. I would love to get her to 4,000 attack. Still working on that. Reforged all of her gear. Spent so many resources on this, right? Got a bunch of attack here. No crit damage, unfortunately, but as you can see, we're already hitting 300 crit damage here, which isn't bad. You know, a bit of crit damage, crit chance here. Got, so this was actually really bad, really poorly rolled necklace. I think it rolled like 2 min roll speeds, rolled a flat health, rolled like attack, once, crit chance once, low roll. Actually, maybe roll attack twice. Maybe it didn't roll flat health. Anyway, it was really, really bad. This was an awful piece, but I had to reforge it to get her to have better stats here. And 208 speed actually makes it so I don't have to crit 4 units in order for her to get pushed all the way up. Lidica or Celeste only has to crit 3 units. The reason being, sometimes people like to bring things like Mersa or Rylets to screw over your CDOM's pushes, right? There's the chance that you'll miss on those units due to their high evasion, and CDOM won't get pushed all the way up, and then the enemy will cut into you after your Lidica, and then you lose, right? So this ensures that CDOM can cut it, and she actually is much stronger than my previous CDOM now that everything is reforged, and I move some gear around. So she is very solid. She's able to one-tap a lot of things. Tog Hell's Ancient Book, so she can soul burn herself, and one-tap a lot of things. Alright, and we are here at the end, almost there, but here's the new unit, Champion Zerato. That's right, that's where Seaside Bellona's lifesteal pieces went, guys. So here he is. Now, mine is very scuffed. He's not very good, but he is rocking a lot of attack, and I'll show you what his pieces are here. So, rocking a bunch of attack. He's not running the 88 lifesteal helmet because Tempest Surin has that one, unfortunately. Rolled this, and it's actually pretty decent. I might try to reforge this for a bit more defense, which is not bad. A little bit more crit chance and crit damage won't hurt either. It rolled pretty high, I think, right? Got random speed, rolled pretty mid-range roll for defense, high crit chance roll here, and 2 almost max roll crit damages right there. So this actually is a godly chess piece. Very, very happy about it. I actually kind of wish this rolled into defense to make him a little bit bulkier, but this works for damage. Alright, he actually has a, I was not reforging, creating so many lifesteal pieces for him. All of them were garbage. I think I crafted at least, converted at least like 8 pieces, and this was the only piece that came out decently. It still didn't roll the way I wanted it to. I wanted it all to go into HP here, but nope, that's not how it went. Here though, this is actually a really good piece. I want to reforge this for all that defense right here with the HP main. Will give him a ton of bulk. Bit of effectiveness helps as well. So an awkward ring like this actually works perfectly on my champion Zerato. And his boots here are an attack pair of boots. I tried running what is it? Another HP HP boot here, and it actually ended up giving him about like 15,000 HP, so he lost about 1,000 HP with an attack boot, but he gained so much attack and so much like crit chance and stuff. This rolled really well, right? The crit chance and health here rolled really, really well. So overall, it wasn't a huge loss in stats, and I actually prefer this. It gives him a pretty decent defense. Wish his HP was higher, but we still have a few reforges left. But he has so much more consistent damage here that I swapped him out. I was using Fairytale for a Nightmare on him for a while, but now I switched him over to Ayla Violin. And yeah, I bought a second copy of this and just maxed it immediately for Champion Zerato. I felt so bad for trading him in back then for Oxlots, but here he is now, back in his full glory. He doesn't need any speed. He's here to counter those debuff units, those pesky debuff units. And yeah, he's not going anywhere anymore. I love him, and he's here to stay. Alright, moving on here, last unit, we have Sinful Angelica. So slowed her down a little bit, she lost a bit of resistance. I do have replacement gears, like I have a better helmet and stuff here that has like 20-something% res. It'll bring her up to like 130 something here, and with Shamadra's staff, I'll bring her up to 150 res again. But as of right now, I don't have the reforged materials for those helmets and those other pieces of gear. She has a new ring as well that I can use on her, but yeah, as of right now, waiting to farm a little bit more to get those resources before I invest back into her. But right now, she still works. She lost 5 speed, but that's okay. She's still speed tuned with all my other units like Oxlots and such. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this video, guys. Hopefully all of my units here have helped you in some way. Maybe plan ahead for what you want. Maybe you have some piece of gear that you have laying around that you're like, oh wait, I never knew it'd be useful on a hero like this. Okay, so with that being said, guys, thank you all so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, subscribe for more Epic 7 content, and leave a comment down below. Let me know what I can do to improve. And until next time, take care.